Welcome to our podcast, Where Are You Now?, where we interview former Piedmont students and show how they've been successful in becoming what they aspired to be, and how current students might be able to do similar things.
Hi, Ms. Lyttle. We are so excited to have you here today and are grateful to all of our listeners for tuning in to our very first episode. Our theme this year is Take 5, so in the interview we might have 5 different overarching questions, but it may vary between each episode of the podcast. I am your host, Ania.
And I'm your other host, Sam, and today we will be asking some questions about where you are today. Let's jump into it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
No problem. So for our first section, which is the introduction, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Shelley Lyttle, and I am the Youth Programs Manager for the Humane Society of Charlotte, and I'm a former Piedmont student as well as former Piedmont teacher and coach.
Cool. That's great.
So our next section is career path and aspirations. So what made you decide to pursue teaching and forming at the Charlotte Humane Society after you worked as a teacher?
Sure. So I loved kids and animals. So that's the one thing when people ask me, why'd you leave teaching? What do you miss? And I miss the kids, overwhelmingly miss the kids. But I love animals. And I started with the Humane Society in 2019 in their outreach department. So I got to work over their food bank and their fence building program. And it was great and it was awesome and it was fulfilling, but I was still missing the kid piece. Well, in 2019, they allowed me to start a humane education program because they didn't have anything currently in place. And so I was able to kind of marry my background with teaching and my love of animals and the newfound knowledge that I was picking up and create kind of a new career.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So when you were in middle school at Piedmont, is this what you aspired to be, or did is this what you aspired to be as a grown-up, or did you just come up with this?
Oh, absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
In middle school, I think I thought I was going to get famous on MTV's TRL, which stands for Total Request Live. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. No, middle school was really, really fun. And I'm still really good friends with some of my best friends from middle school.
That's cool. So when did you discover this? Did you just how did it come about?
Discover working at Humane Society?
Yeah, how did you decide you wanted to do this?
Well, so I decided I was looking for a change after teaching, trying to find where am I going to land, what can I do with animals, how can I work with animals, what kind of credentials do I need to work with animals, and my kind of foot in the door with the Humane Society was their outreach department. And right away I was able to learn a ton about animal body language, animal welfare in general, and just what animal welfare looks like, not just nationally, but especially locally in Charlotte. What are the root causes of the problems we're facing in Charlotte, and then how can I help those? And it really just kind of grabbed my heart and really spoke to me, and I just kind of ran with it and love it.
It's really cool. So what do you think the biggest reason why this job is important, or why is it important to you?
So I think it's important because we don't really have anything like it in Charlotte right now. We don't really have much in the way of humane education. So where we're going out into schools and having field trips and camps and after school programming, scout troop involvement. There's nothing really like that in Charlotte right now. Animal welfare is really focused on adult education. And to me, I think if we're going to fix the root cause of the problem, we need to go to the people that know how to do this from the start, and that's kids. And I feel like kids have the power to change the world and make a world a better place, and they have the ability to see it in ways that adults can't. And if we can bring humane education to them and give kids opportunities to make changes and advocate for animals in Charlotte, then it's a win-win.
Yeah, they're the future, so we should educate them, because then the next generation will do it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense also, because what you learn as a kid is what you normally are brought up to do as an adult and a grown-up. So if you don't really know about it as a kid, then you might not know what to do as an adult. So being a child, you can kind of mold them and shape them.
Absolutely.
Clay.
Yeah, it's like a ripple effect. So as an adult, a lot of the things I've learned at working at the Humane Society are things that I never would have learned otherwise, that I definitely wasn't taught as a kid. So if kids are able to go ahead and have that knowledge and spread that knowledge, at a young age, then we can make a much bigger impact on the world of animal welfare.
Okay, so for our third section, it is how can students follow similar routes? So what would you say to our peers who enjoy working with animals such as you, and what are some first steps they can take?
That's a good question. So I would say that cheesy old saying about it's all about who you know. Networking is so important, and just cultivating those connections with other humans is so important. You never know what relationship you're going to want to reach out to or fall back on, or who's going to lead you to something else. So I think it's really important to cultivate your relationships with people, not just as a kid, but as an adult as well. So I think that's a big part of it. And then as far as kids getting involved, there's tons of ways kids can get involved right now, off-site and on-site. Because of COVID, we're kind of paused on the on-site stuff, but there's lots of ways kids can give back with like fundraisers and donation drives, and we've seen kids get really creative and do like a peanut butter fundraiser in their neighborhood where they really focus on one specific need, and then they really get the message out to their close-knit community about why it's important. Because oftentimes, for example, we had a kid do a peanut butter fundraiser a couple months ago, and they did this because we use peanut butter every day in our shelter for enrichment, and it's a constant need. We go through jars and jars and jars of peanut butter all the time. But when you think animal shelter, you might not think peanut butter if you don't have a dog or you don't know what it's used for. So this kid was able to go out and talk to their neighborhood. They created a whole flyer and had a whole spiel about what enrichment is and why it's important and how we use peanut butter to do that. And they brought us an entire trunk full of peanut butter, which was awesome.
Yeah, my dog will she'll only take medicine if there's peanut butter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, same. And what was I gonna say? Being that our school is IB, I know 8th graders have to do a community service project, and 6th and 7th graders already have to do community service. So I think like whoever's listening to this podcast can maybe take some ideas, because animals, it's like a sensitive subject sometimes, being with adoption agencies and abuse and everything like that animals can go through. So it is a good idea to start helping out and being aware, even if you aren't hands-on, because it is important to know about animals, because that's what surround us in nature and everything.
Yeah, very true. There's actually one of our big initiatives that we are working on is teaching empathy through teaching body language of animals. So 77% of dog bites happen from either a family dog or a known dog. So like a neighbor's dog, cousin's dog, something like that. And it's because oftentimes dogs are giving us these cues and these body language signs that we just don't know to read. And they're speaking to us constantly. They're telling us, hey, don't do that. I like that. This makes me scared. This makes me a little nervous, or I'm unsure of this, or this is making me so happy, or this is making me overstimulated and I'm getting a little crazy. And oftentimes we as humans miss those signs. We either don't read them or misinterpret them. And then the dog has to then escalate their cues and their behavior. And when they're still continually ignored, oftentimes it results in a bite. And one of the big things that we're working to combat that is to teach kids how to recognize these body language signs. And by recognizing body language signs, you're really empathizing with the dog. And it kind of helps kids learn compassion and empathy for not just the dog, but then going on to spread that to other humans as well.
And do you think there's a difference between the dog biting you because you're missing this body language signs, or playful biting?
That's a great question. So there's different kinds. So puppies can get real mouthy, and that's just their way of learning in the world and figuring things out. And it's our job as their human to set the boundary of, that's not acceptable behavior in a safe and appropriate way that they respond to, that keeps us safe and also keeps them safe and healthy. And then there's other bites that can that come from our results of they're trying to tell you to leave me alone, or they're really fearful and scared. So a fearful dog and an angry dog are just as likely to bite as the other one. But to get to that point, oftentimes there are a bajillion cues that they've given us that we just missed and didn't see.
And you kind of covered some of this along the questions we've asked, but what are 5 important facts that you would give to our peers to let them know things they can do to take care of their pets?
Oh, okay, 5 important facts.
Just like some facts, like, you know,
Maybe
any
some
like important
tips.
information. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I would say number 1 would be to ask questions. Reach out to the expert in your area. Reach out to your Humane Society or your ASPCA or your leader in your area to ask questions. How do I do this? What do I do? Because so often we're not taught how to respond or be around animals, and we just kind of learn what we see growing up, and that can look very different depending on how you grow up. So I'd say number 1 would be to reach out for help, to like go find out answers, learn, educate yourself. At the Humane Society, we consider ourselves a community resource center, so we're not just a shelter. We're there for people as much as we are for pets. So we want to help people as much as we can help pets, because what we found is to keep pets out of the shelter, it's equally important to help the people.
Right.
So that'd be 1. Okay.
It's okay if you don't have 5.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, you've given us a lot of information just on throughout the other
Yeah.
questions. So should I? Yeah, I can go on. You go ahead.
Oh, sorry. For the last question, what do you think kids can do in order to figure out what they want to be, similarly to how you did?
Oh, that's a good question. So I would say live by the mantra that you don't have to have it figured out. Because the truth is, nobody has it figured out. And if they tell you they do, they're lying. So I would never try to be kind to yourself, in that it's okay to not know exactly what you want to be or what college you want to go to, and just kind of do what you got to do in the moment to be successful for the next day and the next week, but not to get so locked into this one rigid path, because that's not how life works. Life is just a bunch of twists and turns, and I think just be kind. Being kind is so important. It's more important than anything.
Okay, so for our next section 4, time at Piedmont, so like more specific questions about Piedmont. So like, what are some things that you enjoyed about Piedmont's environment when you were a student here, or just anything you can remember that you enjoyed?
Yeah, I'd say so. The trips, which I'm sorry, because COVID, y'all probably didn't get to go to trips, so that's like, I feel so bad to bring that up. But going on the trips were really, really fun. We went to, when I was here in 6th grade, we went to Florida and we did Disney World. And then 7th grade, we did Cayuga and Camp Cayuga. It was like an outdoor camp. And we did something else, I can't remember. And then 8th grade, we went to the Outer Banks, which they still do. But those trips were so, so fun. And we just had so many memories, and just connecting with my friends, and just I always felt like at Piedmont, you had somebody you could go to. Even if you were in a class with a teacher who you like just weren't feeling and you like them, there was somebody in the building you could go to. You know, even if it wasn't that teacher in the room, there was always somebody you could go to for support or questions or whatever.
Yeah, I think the community is really good here.
Yeah.
So are there any like crazy or specific memorable moments that you like shared at Piedmont?
I'm trying to think, like, what am I allowed to say without getting in trouble? Okay, so I know, so on our Outer Banks trip, I remember me and my friend Olivia, who's the wife of Mr. O'Neill, 6th grade Mr. O'Neill, we got in trouble because we broke the tape on our door. And I think we weren't trying to do anything bad. We just didn't know that it was we just didn't believe that it was real. And we felt like we needed to test it, not knowing that you can't put the tape back when you shut the door. So I remember we got in trouble for that. I just remember having a lot of fun, and I remember feeling respected by adults because of the amount of freedom we were given, which I felt like as a kid, when you were kind of given that freedom, it kind of made you act a different way, because you kind of respected the fact that you were given the freedom, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So just as the final question for this section, what did you take away from Piedmont, just as a whole?
I think ultimately relationships. I'm still good friends with people that I met in 6th grade. Mr. O'Neill's wife, Olivia. I remember coming into 6th grade and I didn't know anybody. My elementary school didn't feed into Piedmont, but she went to Irwin, and they fed in here, and so she knew like tons of kids. And I remember I walked in that morning in the auditorium, and I was like shaking and terrified, and didn't know where I was gonna sit or what to do. And she like called me over, and we sat down, and we've been friends ever since. So I would say relationships for sure.
Yeah, we both went to Irwin, and a lot of our friends come here, so it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like when I came to Piedmont, I wasn't that worried because I knew, even if they weren't in my class, I knew a lot of people, so that made me like more relaxed, you know?
Yeah, like comfortable.
Yeah.
And this is our last section. What would you do differently if you were a kid today? So for the first question, if you could go back in time and tell your younger self the best path to get to where you are now, what would you tell yourself?
Ooh, that's a good question. So what would I tell my younger self to get to where I am now?
Yes.
I would tell myself, I probably wouldn't change anything because everything kind of happened for a reason, but I would tell myself to be nicer to myself, like be kinder, speak more kindly to myself, be less hard on yourself. Don't be such it's okay if you are making perfect grades or perfect this or perfect that, because perfect doesn't exist. So I would say be kinder to yourself for sure.
And what would you tell yourself about work ethic and procrastination and how you can improve it?
That's tough because I feel like people fall into like one of two categories. You either like wait to the super last minute and you like just hammer it out and get it done, or you were done like 2 weeks earlier. So I would say it's a mixture of both. I think both sides can learn from each other. I'm probably more of the get it done 2 weeks early, and oftentimes what happens is I get it done and then I realize that there's things that haven't occurred to me yet, and there's a reason that teacher gave me 2 weeks and maybe there's things I need to just take my time with. So taking time to that person, and to the other person, kind of the same message. You need time, so you need to start it earlier so you can start thinking about it and really kind of marinating on the whole process of it.
All right, that was it. We really appreciate you coming today and answering our questions. It was really interesting. Also, thank you to whoever might be listening, and we hope you tune into our second episode, which is coming soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, y'all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.